the problem is, there's problems underneath, underneath the overall picture.
We really have an incredible mixture of people that are here for the conference, and what we really want to do is have people talk to each other, learn from each other, and what we're doing is put a bit of structure into it and recording it and trying to take things forward. I started doing a calculation and I estimate that there is actually over a millennium of experience in this room. I thought I'd share that. So there's a lot here. The programme is designed for the following. Alan has kind of set us a challenge this morning. I mean, he's just said, there's a lot of things we don't know yet. There's a lot of things we're doing wrong. There's a lot of things we can learn from other people. So the next session that we're going to do will be a little bit cosy and a little bit chaotic in this environment. But what I would like you to do is we're going to put you on small tables and we're going to set you a couple of questions, kind of cafe style for those of you who know the approach. And we're going to use that to kind of generate a little bit, the agenda and take things forward. And really think about it, what do we want? How should we be supporting enterprise and small business? What should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing? What would the ideal situation be like? I mean, that's really where we'd like to get to, bit of an agenda setting. So the session this morning is going to be open in that way and is going to try and open the debate, apart from which I think it's a super opportunity to talk to people and to get to know each other a little bit, because we really won't have that much time. This afternoon, we have 4 parallel sessions, 2 plus 2, and they take really a lot of the different areas of small business development. In a sense, they follow what was the small business centre model of cradle to grave and support network and policy and so on. So we need you to decide, unless you're doing something in one of the sessions, which of the sessions you will go to. There's the enterprise, education, how to foster an enterprising spirit, one session. The second one is looking at the kind of cradle to grave from startup to internationalisation and beyond. Those run in parallel. Then the 2 which are looking at the networks and the policy issues, and the last one which is looking at the international development and sort of taking all of this out into the world. So the parallel sessions are designed really to focus down the debate a little bit and look at specific areas. Tomorrow morning we've got 2 panels that are plenary, and the first one is entrepreneurs. We absolutely had to have a panel of entrepreneurs, and Alan will be chairing it, so you can continue to learn from entrepreneurs and ask them some challenging questions, get them to challenge us about what should we be doing. And then the last session will be more support network and different institution members, people that are on that panel, to sort of look at the other view and take it a little bit forward. So, we really see it as a series of conversations and a series of co-creations. They are the famous keynote listeners who are taking, specific topics and running through to try and capture what we're doing. And we're also trying to capture a lot of the sessions so that there will be outputs, and we'll continue talking to you once this is all over. One small thing I just need to check. We would like to have, if possible, your permission to circulate emails of everyone. So, if anyone has any kind of a problem, see Linda perhaps, and we'll sort it out. But what we'd really want to do is circulate all the emails of everyone and also all the little bios. We started putting up the bios of people who are contributing and who are on the panels, but we'd really like a small bio of everyone. So again, we'll get you instructions to send that through to Linda, who's been handling everything. And we'd like to put that also on the website so that we can kind of continue. So that brings me now to the first bit of this cafe session. There's going to be 2 rounds. I'll have some of you move out into the 4 tables that we've set up out there, because otherwise it's going to be impossible to chat. We'd like round about 4 or 5 people around the table. You will be having a question for the first one. The first one is really saying, what do we think the future of enterprise and small business will look like? What is it we want to create? And when we're done with that, we'll look at the second part of the question, which is really more about what we need to do to get there. So we'll pass you that round. There are pens, there's paper. We want you to write on it, and we want you just to leave it on the table as you're discussing. So, feel free to write, not on the tablecloth, but on any bits of paper that are floating around there. After about 25 minutes, 25 minutes, see how we go with time, I'm going to stop you. And I would like one person to host the table and stay, and I want everyone else to go and find another table and sit with some other people that you don't know, and continue with the second question. And then we'll all come back here and, we'll try and get a feel for what's going on. We have small business centre people here, and committee member people who are sort of around to move people around. But please take the opportunity to sit with people that you don't know, to find out who else is around here and what they have to say about things, and to generate some debate.
Then the lectures that they did, how they took it
connections or relationships.
I think the opportunity cost to rapidly change the environment and then
I'm really encouraged by all the noise that's going on. I do hope you're talking about what was on the pieces of paper in front of you. We're on camera again. All I want to do just at the moment, we're really at the very beginning of the journey really, but we would like to just feedback some of the key things that have been coming out of the discussions. Any key points that you would like to highlight that we're going to start putting up. We are going to collect a lot of the information and try to bring it together in some sort of order. I'm also going to put up some of these sheets of paper so that if things occur to you during the day of today or tomorrow, feel free, just to scribble on them and anonymously or otherwise, hopefully, some interesting comments. But just before we break for lunch, can I just ask for some reflections? We're looking at what should small business enterprise look like? What is it we're heading towards? And what are some of the things that we need to do? Without structuring them into two parts, because I don't think we really have a lot of time. Just give me an idea of some of the things that are coming out. Who'd like to kick off? You've got the mic.
One of the, I think, interesting topics that we discussed is about awakening latent skills, and that can be done potentially through many channels. We looked at the awakening of latent skills through the support of family and friends, institutions, mentoring, that they all play potentially a role in awakening these latent skills. And earlier on at another table linked with that is enterprise education throughout, but it's about entrepreneurial thinking rather than about business plans and strategy and so forth. And it's that, and creating for young people, that is one of the options in life, not necessarily to be taken immediately, but it's there, and that is the role of all these different co-creators.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So it's what Simon Goon said at the very beginning about the mindset and the kind of the spirit, and also the ecosystem, which I think has been mentioned a few times now.
Okay, perhaps I can add to what's just been said just now. I think we also identified the benefit of interventions or activities where it's not just a question of talking to young people. We talked to one of our team members talked about her experience as an entrepreneur, awakening at a later stage and so forth. And therefore, it suggests that this idea of enterprise education should not be just confined to the young, although it's important, but there should be interventions throughout, and the possibility of those activities occurring.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Okay. I hate to criticise the organisers, but the two questions are incompatible. I mean, first of all, we looked at what does the future of enterprise and small business look like. So we did that, and then we got the second sheet that says, how do you co-create the desired future? So I think, and the two things don't necessarily relate.
In the middle.
Yeah, because what does it look like is objective, you know, what's laying ahead, whereas the desired future is what do you want?
Yes.
So we kind of got a bit confused between the two questions. And one of the things we looked at in terms of what does the future look like is this idea, which may be quite controversial, that everybody's in business. And it's happening at the moment and will probably continue. It doesn't mean everybody's an entrepreneur, but everybody's doing something relating to, maybe they've got a part-time business, maybe they're doing some freelance work, trading in some ways. And if that continues in the future, then, you know, it's going to make it pervasive, this idea of pervasiveness, which I think was one of the words used. And the other thing that was mentioned was perhaps this reduced role for enterprise. We criticise the word support, enterprise support. So whatever word you use instead of that may reduce in the future because there's so much that's online now, so much knowledge, so much information. If you start a business, do you need to necessarily talk to somebody about it, like a business advice centre or something? I mean, they still exist, they're still around. What is their role in the future, as opposed to how it was in the past?
And I think that's really important, and I mean that's something also that Alan said earlier, isn't it? That support is the wrong word because it feels like they've got, you know, they need crutches, as it were.
Yeah. So what's the word?
What is the? Did you come up with one? Okay. Well, that's on the agenda for the future. What is the word? Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think just to sort of add a little bit to what Paul's saying, I think the second question is where we tend to get ourselves into problems, where we try to shape the future. From a supply side, you know, we went through that period of people must have business plans, they must have ISO, they must have investors in people. You know, we start to define how you actually go about doing what you should be doing, and I think that's where the supply side tends to go wrong. Whereas I think we perhaps should be more thinking about how we facilitate where this thing is heading to where it's heading and enabling people to achieve where they want to get to. I know that's very open, but that seems to be a slightly different approach.
Yeah, Keith, you wanted to.
Well, the two groups I was involved with came up with unbridled revolution, to be honest with you. Things are so bad in terms of the support, the banking systems, etc., that actually the best thing to do is start again. And what we came up with was an absolutely stunning plan to use the university as a catalyst for bringing together all of these people and having a proper working group, do some kind of crowdfunding thing that the university runs for new entrepreneurs, etc., and actually just start again. Press the reset button. Let's do something different. Yep, switch it off and switch it back on. And I think that's where we got to. And frankly, I think one of the comments I have sort of gleaned is that business in the Northeast has succeeded despite everything that's gone on. Alan's very bravely said it failed. The business school it sort of failed. I don't think that's strictly true, but
I didn't say I said we failed really to give small business the prominence.
Yes.
And the institutional background that we need.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Yes,
I think we've succeeded
indeed.
in many ways. But
I think you have. I think you have.
Fundamentally in that institutional sense.
Yeah, I do take that on board. So, but in terms of the overall position, business has flourished in the Northeast, as I said, despite everything. And so consequently, you know, we're sitting here. I mean, they've just announced that the export figures for the Northeast have just gone down a bit, but for 2 or 3 years we were top of the regions for export. So somebody's doing something somewhere. Huh? Oh well, then it's in the statistics. Then it's in the statistics. So I think there's. I think I also saw some information from the local LEP, which said that the generation of new businesses in the Northeast is on par with the generation in other regions. Okay. But the survival rate is a bit lower. And I think that's where the key intervention should come in. Now, I don't know what the reasons for that are, but certainly it's an interesting fact. So we need to understand what our set of objectives are, use the university, click the restart button, and off we go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, would you?
Hi, Dawn Cranswick, PNE Group, or Project Northeast, some of us you will remember us by. Just thinking about the numbers of people starting a business and why it might be higher, I would suggest that that's possibly related to the number of redundancies we've had, and the number of failures is possibly related to those people then going into jobs, which is maybe what they wanted to do in the first place. The other thing I think I can say as an enterprise practitioner, if you like, is that it's very interesting that with the government reducing the amount of money that's going into enterprise development, the number of starts have increased. And that's very difficult to argue with. Mm-hmm. It's an observation. It's an observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Any comments from this side of the room? I feel like you're being neglected.
Hi, William from Sunderland University, and you're probably the only guy from Sunderland. We looked at the question, how do we co-create our desired future, who needs to be involved, and how, first of all, we asked, who are we? It would be useful to know who we are. We were talking about business support, entrepreneurs, academics. Then also we said we need to take interest in students. Somebody spoke about developing university environment, IP, hatcheries, supporting the alumni, finding a balance, which is more of the how question, about risk and failure, looking at the learning process in an environment, is it possible? And also going back to how do we create a desired future, putting entrepreneurs in charge, which Alan said, giving time and taking people under their wings. But the question was, is there a critical mass to do this? There's also another good contribution saying we need to create an entrepreneurial community of leaders. And the question came, what do you mean? We gave an example in Scotland where I think whilst in Durham, people say it's individual competitive culture. In Scotland, there's individual culture plus, vis-a-vis groups. And maybe we're talking about groups, so we're talking about teams. We talk about developing life skills for graduates. And basically, we need energy. And we're creative creatures. Then one final big kind of exit strategy, transform global economic relationship. End of story.
Okay, that's the conference in a nutshell, and a few others besides. Yeah, and you've raised an awful lot of questions that I hope we'll pick up sort of as we go along. We had another. Okay, yeah.
Right. See. Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, we had two tables. The first table answering the question about what does the future of enterprise and small business look like. We found some words which are very definitive by themselves. It's a technology. There's a word which has been repeated, which is cooperation. How the sector is conditioning these two things, technology and cooperation, and encouraged born global companies from local to global. The second question about how do we co-create our desired future, we didn't agree what is the desired future for everybody. So we don't know what is the desired future for the table. So we had hard to define how we're going to co-create it and that, but. We agreed that everybody, all the stakeholders, have to be implicated on that working for an entrepreneurial thinking. And once we pass through the European Union governments and national governments, institutions, how it's important that these institutions, through the benchmarking, learn continuously, and this support can be given to the small and medium companies. We agreed that the problem are the companies, because they don't want to do what the governments say they have to do, and so what we
hence the revolution.
So, and we, as part of the companies here in this table, said that what the governments have to do is to forget the companies, and not to create more barriers, and not to change the rules, and not to move the scenario so easy as to go against the companies. Now, out of joke about the importance of finding solution for big problems, which maybe in England it's not important now, but in countries as Spain or the south of Europe, with the unemployment rates that we had in that countries, it is important to find how institutions think more and doing the job for the future, and the companies look for the short term in an environment which is not going against their interests. No?
Would you like to respond? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, this is on a completely different point that was in our discussions, and that was actually understanding better the relationship between a buyer and a seller, and using technology to help that process. And there was one lady who had a very good idea, was about how we engage with potential customers, and that's a very important aspect because it provides smaller businesses with an opportunity to engage directly with consumers using technology. And that should be a key part of any support system, because you can't rely on going to the supermarkets anymore. If you're in the food industry, or if you're going to business, you can adopt a similar kind of process, but those are the adoption of technology to help with those interactions.
Yeah, no, that's important. Yeah, it's part of the changing environment, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Susan.
Well, I was hoping that Agnieszka or one of our other Polish colleagues would report, because they were just brimming with not just extraordinary ideas but experiences from Poland. But one thing I would like to pick out from our discussion is ethics. There was a really powerful sense that within this wider environment, where certainly at the corporate level or at the level of global finance, the idea that ethics should play a role in economic contracts of any kind seems to have disappeared, that actually small-scale enterprises often come out of ethical concerns and a real commitment, not just to your local region, but to the people who might be working in the enterprise, and that growth can present dilemmas that are moral as well as purely business. And I think tax was interestingly considered to be as big an issue in Poland as it is in the UK. And that's where international agreements that make it impossible for big companies in particular not to pay their fair share of tax, whereas small enterprises tend to be, of course, very easy targets for paying more than their fair share of tax. That's something that we need global cooperation in order to address. But these are all ethical and political issues.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Did you want to? Yes? Okay.
If I may add something to what was said, and I totally agree about this ethic and tax issue, as well as with the cooperation with local government to support SMEs. So what we decided that is quite important for the future of enterprise and small business image is that business has no standard age and gender, no pre-assumption. We also discussed the symbiosis between changing technologies and adaptability of small and medium enterprises. We are representing the Kraków Technology Park, so a bit different, I would say, ecosystem that you are. So looking from the different, sometimes perspective, but having very great experience in the project we ran for 2.5 years with support of Yolanda. It was creating the roadmap for Kraków metropolitan area of smart technologies implementation. So that's why it's quite important, and we had great experience of cooperating with different stakeholders coming from business, science, NGOs and administration. And the first impression of the workshops was we are we, and you are, and they are they, yes. And when we started thinking about our region, as I'm from this district and I'm from another, it just generated a wonderful common ecosystem for everybody of us to give some input to the process of change. So what about the future? We also pay attention to mutually respectful relationship between local government and SMEs with support of innovation, and the relationship should also concentrate on resources where they are needed. Ethical models, which was already mentioned, and that the relationship between local and international SMEs have to be transformed. There is no answer how, but definitely we are facing the completely different economic ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, maybe just if I could, there's a couple of things that are coming out. I think one, there's no agreement about a future, but there are many futures, and I think there is this idea that each area, each ecosystem, each region or locality has its own problems. So there are local issues that need to be tackled. And I mean, that's something you, Alan, have always said, about embedding it in localness, if you like. But that there are, if we like, so-called golden rules or, key principles or things that we can draw together and that we can pull out that can be used and potentially adapted, not directly implanted into another situation. And I think in essence, that's what I'd really like to see happen in these couple of days that we've got here today, that we have got this kind of mix and that we are coming up with local instances and different ideas. But we would like to see if we can't get towards, maybe a partly shared future or a series of overlapping and slightly, and common futures, and definitely perhaps some golden rules that are useful and that can be applied and that can help us kind of move forward. So, I'm pleased that there's been a lot of discussion, there's been a lot of things that have come out that are quite interesting, very interesting. We will try to go deeper in the next sessions that we will have in the parallel session, and then we'll try and bring it again together. But there are these areas of, important locality, but some guiding principles and sort of key underlying things that we can learn.
Can I just ask a question? Could you put down there, there's not a lot about how to.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
My frustrations have always been that we don't have, when I contrast this country with Switzerland, the canton, which is a highly dynamic entrepreneurial economy, and not banking, but when I contrast it with the Länder in Germany, which are massively powerful, you really need power. IPPR produces yet another regional strategic plan. Well, I had more regional strategic plans than hot dinner since 1971. But basically, if we don't have the power to do anything, then we can't do bottom up. You've really got to have some power, and perhaps we should put down how we create power at the bottom. I don't know whether others would agree here, but if you don't have the power, you can't make things happen.
Yeah.
Alan, I'd just like to endorse that because I'm involved in a project in the Republic of Ireland, and what I found out from one of our team was that it actually nicked your ideas from way back. And they've got a program which is taking budding entrepreneurs, budding projects, and putting them through a process of really getting intervention in all sorts of areas in terms of marketing, product development, etc., and actually helping them create their own feasibility study over a period of time, over 4 months. And if that project and plan actually looks as though it's got viability, then funding is available, and large-scale funding is available. And so consequently, what they're trying to do is they've actually got a proper integrated process going through assessing projects, suitability of projects. The only criteria is they have to use some, not all, but some of the elements of their product from the Irish food community. But it's a food project. And so consequently, that's what I think is joined up thinking from their point of view, with only one stipulation: you've got to use some of the produce that's created in Ireland. And we don't do that. It doesn't exist in the UK. And that's an example of your point, how to.
Just a small comment.
Right, we'll have Pat, then Ted, and I think then we probably need to call it a morning.
It's just a very quick thing, because I was going around listening to a lot, and you were saying about spatial differentiated futures, if you want to put it that way. But I think also there are futures on different life cycles, if you want to put it. And that a lot of entrepreneurs are very rapid with technology. Their future, their vision is fairly short. It can be a year. And that a lot of structures helping to facilitate or support whatever language we're talking are often stuck on completely different life cycles. And so you end up with mismatch. And that's, and also differentiated across in terms of different groups. So you might have people who see their vision for a year and then it's on to something else. If a program starts and it doesn't get funding, then it's... So I think there's an issue about timelines as well as spatial differentiation.
Right, Ted.
Yes, the issue of power always sits behind this, and it's quite interesting that small businesses considered to be a bit individualistic and a bit isolated, but the real power these days comes from the power of crowds. Crowdfunding, crowdsourcing ideas, the Arab Spring, that kind of interconnection and crowd work. Now there are 4 million people in this country at least running their own business, probably more. I haven't looked at the statistics lately. 4 million people. That's a lot of power if harnessed. So maybe we should be asking, like you say, switch off and switch on again. And this time when we switch on, there's no professional thing. It's all about the facilitation of the power of crowds, of enterprise and people.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Right, well, on that note, I'm going to call this morning to a close.